The Tudor P01 was launched at Basel World this year, but it's only just started to hit the shops. I caught up with a guy called Floatlight who likes to buy weird watches, and he allowed me to check his brand new P01 out. Welcome to Bark and Jack, I'm Adrian, and this year we've seen a couple of weird watches being released. We had AP launch a code 1159, which as a range was really quite boring, and then Tudor launched their P01, which was anything but boring, but just really quite an odd watch. There aren't many things that the watch community agrees on, but the code 1159 being a weird release was one of them, and the Tudor P01 being a weird release was another one of them. But then last week, the P01 won an award at GPHG, which is even more odd. If you're new to this channel and you want to support it, do hit that subscribe button down the bottom there and the little bell icon so you get notifications. And if you're into straps, jump over to barkandjack.shop and check out our NATO straps and leather straps. If you're not familiar with GPHG, it's basically the Oscars but for the watch world. And it happens every year, and there's loads of different categories, and watch brands can submit their watches to take part. There's then a panel of judges, and they choose which watch within that category should win that award. The award that was won by the Tudor P01 is called the Challange Award, and the criteria is basically the watch has to be under 4,000 Swiss francs, or $4,000 or £3,000, and that's pretty much the only criteria. When you see what other watches were involved in this Challenge Award, it kind of makes sense that the Tudor P01 won it, because it really wasn't up against much. There was an ice watch with a generic quartz movement inside, there's watches with off-the-shelf ETA movements inside, and there are only very, very few watches within this that had in-house movements, the Tudor P01 being one of them. Out of the collection, I actually think there are only two other watches that were competing with the Tudor, and that's this Seiko Presage Arita porcelain dial and this Horage Autark. Everything else, it either just looks weird or is just an off-the-shelf movement and doesn't really compete against something that can have an in-house movement. Anyway, let's talk about the watch itself. The P01 is part of the Black Bay range, and it's a production version of a concept watch that was created in the 1960s for the US Navy. I saw this watch at Basel World when it was released, and it was alongside its original concept watch. Now, although everyone laughed at this watch when it was launched, because it is a weird-looking thing, it created hype. There was so much hype around this little window display that had the watch inside. It was just as busy as the new Rolexes and the new Pateks that were behind it. As always, it's really hard to judge a watch and really pass comment on it if you haven't experienced the watch. If you're just looking at pictures online or looking at it through a pane of glass, actually getting hands-on with the watch that's really where you can start to be critical about it. Getting hands-on with it it's not, I wouldn't say it swayed me, but I certainly feel different towards it now. It is a weird looking watch, and that's never going to change. But what surprised me about the watch the most is how wearable it is. And there are aspects of the watch which are just really very good. There's two main things that stand out as being weird. You've got the 4 o'clock crown, which the SKX has a 4 o'clock crown, and quite a few Seikos actually have a 4 o'clock crown. And I've never really liked it as an aesthetic, but you can kind of pass that off, because when you're thinking about it being a tool watch, a watch for guys and girls in the Navy doing stuff with their hands, then actually you don't want a crown to be bashing into the back of your hand, so moving the crown to the 4 o'clock position makes sense. So you can kind of pass that off as it's not the best looking place to have the crown, but actually it makes sense from a usability point of view. But then you have the massive end links that then go into the first link of a bracelet, but then it's actually a strap. So that whole section just looks a bit weird. Functionality wise, it makes sense because you've got a rotating bezel, and this watch is a tool watch, and so therefore if you rotate the bezel, you want it to be stuck in that position, and when you glance at your watch, you want to trust that that bezel hasn't moved. And so they've locked it with the clamp at the top, so the upper end link actually arches over. It's not really an end link, it's kind of an extension to the case, but it is hinged and it locks onto the bezel, and so the bezel can't move. Feature wise, this is brilliant, and again, from a usability point of view, it makes sense. Imagine you're in the Navy and you're in a boat, you're speeding along and you've got big gloves on and you're trying to synchronize watches or whatever they do. You need to operate that lock to unlock the bezel. You've now got this massive plate that you can push down with your gloves, operate the bezel, and then lock it again. So again, usability point of view, it works perfectly for that. Aesthetically, that part is just really weird. I will say, however, from a design point of view, bezel inwards, it is hot. That whole section is just bang on. They've got that perfect. Despite the fact it's got these huge chunks of metal between the lugs, it's actually still a very wearable watch because everything is angled around, and so it actually hugs your wrist very well. And it's when you put this watch on when you start to realize that actually it works. It's for me, it's never going to work from a looks point of view. It's never going to be a good looking watch. I guess from a tool watch point of view, from the fact that it's a watch for people to use as a timekeeping device in environments that might be challenging, both the environment itself being challenging, but then also having to wear equipment like gloves and things to operate the watch. They've nailed that aspect. We've got 200 meters water resistance, which is more than enough for someone who's working in water, not necessarily a diver. The moon inside is brilliant. It's an automatic in-house moon, COSC certified, 70-hour power reserve. This thing is really a very, very good movement. And for £2,900, that part of the package is absolutely spot on. It even has a superb locking deploying clasp. This clasp is brilliant, but then the strap itself is a hybrid strap with rubber underneath and leather on top. Now, you would have thought if they'd gone that far to make such a tool watch, then why use an untreated leather that isn't water resistant? Tudor have created a very good tool watch that can't do its purpose straight out the shop. You have to put another strap on it, otherwise you're just going to ruin that leather strap. And it's a shame, because that could have been the ultimate package. It's a weird looking thing, of course, but if it can actually achieve a lot, then hats off to it. It's a bit like the Omega Pro Plus, which is a really ugly watch, but actually because it's so capable, it then becomes good looking because of its ability makes it good looking. Tudor could have done that. If Tudor had used a decent strap with this watch, then they could have done that with this P01. It could have been their ugly but very capable watch, and then it would have been good looking, but they missed that one. This watch will always be a Marmite watch. You're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. And it will be sold out. I doubt Tudor are going to make very many of these watches. And those who are keen watch collectors or Tudor fans will buy them up. They will be gone, like Floatlight. He just likes weird, different watches, and this caters to what he likes in watches. And there's enough people out there who will do that. I'm guessing this will be not officially a limited run, but I doubt there's going to be very many of these made. And for £2,900, that's not a huge amount of money to spend on a watch that will essentially become a collector's item. If you see one in a window, go check it out, because it is a watch that grew on me. It's spending time with this watch, you kind of start to get it. It's like it makes sense when you interact with it. When you flip up that lock for the bezel, it makes sense. So do check it out if you get the chance to see one. Guys, drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you think of the P01. Maybe you've got hands on with it as well, or maybe you've bought one. I've joined forces with Scottish Watches and 10 and 2. Do go check out their podcasts if you haven't checked them out. Basically what we're doing is kind of making more formal collaborations between the three content creators, and we're calling this collaboration Hortics. So jump over to Instagram and check us out. We are Hortics. If you want to check out previous videos and articles, jump over to barkandjack.com. Check out our straps at barkandjack.shop, and follow me on Instagram at barkandjack. And I'll see you guys next time. Take care.